Hey, this is Notser, and today we get a real treat. We're taking a look at a British aircraft carrier for the first time in World of Warships history. This is the Tier 10 British aircraft carrier Audacious, and it's dressed appropriately, I think. It's very, what's the word? British, which is just beautiful. So I'm going to talk through what the Audacious specifically is trying to do with its squadrons, and then just a general comment on different aircraft carriers that the Brits can field. And then I'm going to talk through this game because honestly, this game is incredibly close. So, the British aircraft carrier focus is on armor and the ability to do their cluster bomb effect. Now, their torpedo bombers are very shallow range, 1.5 kilometers to be precise, on the range of the torpedoes. I mean, basically point blank. And that causes you to have to play it differently from something like the Japanese aircraft carriers with 10-kilometer range, 8-kilometer range torpedoes and super fast. They have the option to drop it far away from the enemy ships, but they don't have to do that. The British, and specifically Audacious, you have to do that. And, you know, that's an issue for some, but it's also an advantage because these torpedoes settle down very quickly and they will become very accurate, similar to the Japanese. You know, they'll focus to a point, and that focus to the point, obviously, that's a huge advantage to a player that has the chance, the opportunity to settle their torpedo accuracy, and we try against the Loyang. So you might be wondering, are the attack rockets so bad that you're not going to go and do your typical attack rockets, focus an enemy DD? I want to try different ways of opening. I want to see if opening a torpedo has its benefits, because it definitely does. Same with my carpet bombing. I want to be unpredictable. Now, as I drop that last load on the Loyang, his friendly aircraft carrier drops a squadron, so I have to try and move away, get the most value out of the final drop I can. Once I do that, I move on, and we're going to try and use our attack rockets. Now, the British have extra armor, extra health, but they're really slow. They are very, very, very slow. They're the slowest aircraft carrier squadrons in the game. And when you boost up, you can sort of conceal that weak point, but it's still there. It's still so blatantly there, and it's especially there early tier. Early tier, you might hit 100 knots at tier 4, but at tier 10, you're giving up speed. You're giving up speed to other squadrons, and you have to keep that in mind. So I was trying to find the enemy DD that was, of course, capturing B. We did not find him. He was in smoke. I decided to disengage a little bit. The Zhao is what is detecting me. So once I see, okay, they're pretty grouped up, I'm going to disengage, and we're going to try and find a weak point. Now, there was a Loyang, and I was attempting to fly in a predicted direction for his last known position, but I never found him. I didn't find him at all. So instead of ever finding the Loyang, I'm going to head off towards C. There's got to be a DD there. There's a DD at A, B. It would make sense that there would be one at C. But of course, I'm using my boost to get over here because the British aircraft carrier fleet, the squadrons are just slow. Now, there is an exception to this. The premium tier 8 British aircraft carrier, I think it's Indomitable or it's Impenetrable. I don't know why the Brits, well, I know why the Brits choose their awesome names. I don't know why Wargaming chose a name so similar, but the premium tier 8 British aircraft carrier has special, super fast, twin-engine Sea Hornets that are absolutely outstanding in their speed, but they can't torpedo. That's sort of the downside. So, enemy DD is successful in capturing. I am successful in finding the DD, and I'm just going to do a little bit of chip damage against this guy. 5,300 feels like a good little bit. It also forces out his smoke, and since he's using smoke, I don't really feel I don't feel like I'm going to get a chance to continue the engagement. So I'm just going to disengage, and I'm going to go find another target that I can either spot or fire on. Now, the boost isn't, the worst thing ever. You honestly can do a little bit of feathering on the British and Audacious. But you want to have your boost for avoiding the flak, because the flak is really where you get eliminated quickly. And the British have that issue. Because they have an armored deck, they don't really have that much of an inventory for their hangar. So one of the skills that I chose over Concealment Expert, the module, I chose the flight modification, which extends the size of the hangar. And the British are sort of in that Saipan world where each of their aircraft are very impactful, but they have very little. And if you take extensive losses, you're going to be incredibly less impactful. So one of the skills that I chose, anything that extends the hangar size, it felt really good on the Brits. But we're moving over here. This Gorosukua first, a little disconnected. George will try and carpet bomb. Note the way the carpet bomb looks. It ends up working very well, not against him, but the animation style, very cool. We do a special bounce. If you use the border, it'll bounce you off quickly. Now, one thing that people are confused about, how are you so consistent at, maneuvering and avoiding flak? You'll note the way that I even maneuver, even towards the Baltimore. It's always a curve. It's always a curve. Because the flak is always targeting the direction you're headed. As long as you are headed in the curve, you will never actually fly through the flak's predicted path for you. That's huge. That's the difference between being able to do free damage for the entire game and losing your squadron's effectiveness on the very first attack. That simple idea. And then once you're committed, you want to then use your engine boost to play with your braking and your airspeed so you can allow the flak to burst in front of you and then avoid it by stalling out or speeding up, depending on which works for you. So those are a couple tips that I've been making use of, but this is not looking good. The enemies have 2 bases to R1. They're in the process of capturing B. There's an enemy aircraft carrier. I've got a torpedo. I should have thought about using the torpedo a little bit more, maybe going attack rockets and going towards B point and attacking those DDs. In the moment, I wanted to take the torpedo bombers and go after the Gorosukua first. He was the lowest health and he was retreating. He didn't have any A protection. As the aircraft carrier, you've got to exploit the isolated targets because that's their mistake. You are simply showing them the errors of their way by punishing it brutally. As it stands, GK gets knocked out. Enemy Montana is attempting to stop me. Since he's turning inside of my attack, I dropped short in an effort for it to activate before he can deactivate him. 2 of the 3 make contact, which is great. 1 causes a flood. Because it causes a flood, I'm going to sort of operate loosely in the area to confirm that he puts the flood out, which he does in the top right corner. While all this is going on, my aircraft carrier is under attack, but it's pretty well insulated from attack. I have a really bad habit of overextending, and I'm trying to work on it. Ooh, hello, Musashi. I'm going to try and get the aim to settle down. It almost was able to point inward. Not precisely, but it should be enough for a couple torpedo hits. 1, 2, did we get a third? Yes, we did. All 3 made contact, and 1 caused a flood. So, confirm in the top right corner, is the flood still going? No, it is not. Because the flood is not going, I am going to attempt to stall and go to a point. That's as accurate as it can go. Gave plenty of lead, so he can't get inside the activation window. They love to do that. We get a flood on the nose, and that flood, my friends, is going to be sticking. And that's sort of the risk versus reward you play with. Enemy Musashi, though, he took a big shot, I think, from the Alsace, and he's knocked out. So he doesn't flood out, but he was going to flood. And this is not the new flood mechanics that you may or may not have read about. This is the old, a minute and a half and lose 40% of your life, it's a bad thing for you to flood. But we've got to try and bring this back. So one of the first things that I can do is try and slow down the advance of this northern flank. They are loosely grouped up, but not close enough that their AA is multiplied. I can actually take advantage of this. So I'm just going to try and aim my cluster bomb in a straight path. And a good technique for the Brits is to drop it just slightly in front and allow the enemy ship's momentum to carry it into the cluster as the bombs are dropping. And it's clear that the enemy is aware that they want to defend this. So on the approach, very typical attack plan. Cluster bomb, not as accurate as you may expect with other aircraft carriers. It really is very good against battleships, but obviously the destroyers and cruisers, if they're small enough, they can avoid it pretty consistently. But I immediately scrambled the attack rockets because that Loey Young was spotted, and I want to go after this guy. So I'm going to keep the island in between myself and these wyverns. They have a very accurate point that they come to. Because of their speed, they have pretty good maneuverability. That's one of the things that the Brits are pretty much known for. Now, I can't say the same for the premium. Oh, get this guy. Did we get him? I can't believe that worked out. We did 6K to 2 separate targets. I just want to say that out loud. I don't know how that indicator was indicating that, but I'm sure the triggered SJW unsubbed. Hey, what can I say? I like to pick on targets. So we're just going to aim our attack rockets. Pretty good, 4,600. And I'm playing with my throttle the entire time. I'm trying to min-max my flak avoidance so I don't take too many losses. One of the cool things about the Brits, in my opinion, this aircraft carrier line feels like it is user-friendly. It has, they're slow. They have extra armor. They have smaller, more impactful aircraft. They also have an interesting armored deck. So you've probably heard of all the Brits, the British aircraft carriers, armored deck, armored deck, armored deck. Because of the armored deck, you have less hangar space. It's just natural. That's just the disadvantage of an armored deck. Okay, we got a little bit of damage there. But the armored deck isn't the entire deck like it is for the Midway or the Hakuru. The armored portion is a rectangle that exists in the center of the aircraft carriers. At the bow, and absolute stern, though, is a weak, unarmored zone. And on top of that, you obviously have the command tower. The command tower is a superstructure that's very weak armored as well. So if you're a high-explosive attack rocket or high-explosive dive bomb, those are the areas of British aircraft carriers you want to focus on. You don't want to focus on the center of the deck because your high explosive will shatter and it'll fail to do damage. And yes, I definitely recognize that the enemy was attempting to catch me, so I'm attempting to retreat. And while we're doing this, obviously I'm scrambling every squadron I can contribute to try and knock out the Prince Eugen and also the Iowa. As I look at the map, I've got 4 battleships, or 3 battleships. They've got 2 battleships. What is the advantage, disadvantage? Well, battleships are going to operate a little bit more independently. They have good AA protection just in general because they're a battleship, obviously. So I need to try and get the targets that the battleships really can't reach. These targets are sort of behind islands and they're sort of camping. Note the enemy aircraft carrier. He tried to provide, and oh man, Prince Eugen, completely stationary. He tried to provide that fighter cover, but he didn't do it in time. And the Prince Eugen is attempting to back out, but I don't know that he can. Really? 23 health? 23 health? Really? He put the flood out just in time, so he's sitting on 23 life. Arrgh. Plus he's got the fighter cover, so if I go in, I'm going to lose. So I'm just going to try. Note, I'm in a circle. I'm turning, which helps to avoid the flak until the attack run itself. Maybe multiple flak bursts, 4 or 5 ships, but 1 versus 1? No, and yes, we get the torpedo to disperse directly in. Friendly fighters knock out the enemy fighters, and I get a free attack run on the Iowa, knocking out the Prince Eugen. Team is attempting to capture B point. They also have to deal with the Midway, though, and I'm just attempting to knock out the Iowa and keep C point in our grasp. So aim to a point, and the Iowa's going to move through it. This should be 3 torpedoes, I think. Easily 3 torpedoes. Somehow it's not, though. So I think what happened was the Iowa was able to turn inside of my activation, and only 1 torpedo activated before it made contact with the ship. And that's my bad. I just released it a little bit too close. That's one of the weaknesses of the Brits. They have that very shallow torpedo range. You basically can't use torpedo acceleration. If you do, you only have a kilometer of range. But with 1.5 kilometers, you really just have to nail the aim and nail the lead every single time, which isn't, difficult. But early on, I'm not quite as good as I want to be with these. So we got a cluster bomb, give a little bit of lead so he sails into it, does a little bit of damage and causes a fire. And we're going to just use the border to bounce quickly and get right back. This is one of the weaknesses of being close to the border, guys. You got to be very careful. I'm trying to get it to aim. It did not settle down, and I dropped it a little too soon. But the drop actually worked out. Now, if I can have a successful fire on this drop, it will stick because he has used damage control, and he clearly is not on fire. Friendly kid is knocked out by the Midway, and I'm going, oh no, this is a loss. I've got to get a kill on this guy. A little bit better drop on the target, honestly. No fire, though. Urgh. All right, we're going to scramble our torpedo bombers and go after it once again. Regardless of attack rockets, torpedo bombs, dive bombs, torpedoes are just so consistent across the board. They get you damage. They have the chance for a flood. That damage is noticeable. Sometimes my cluster bombs, they'll miss the target completely, or I'll drop it too short or too far. Same with the attack rockets, but I really can rely on the torpedoes of not only the Audacious, but pretty much all the Brits. That's why the premium British is a difficult choice. You do not get torpedo bombers with the premium British aircraft carrier. I've got a great game, which I'll share for that. It's a completely different style with a couple of familiar traits. Enemy Iowa was turning into my aircraft, which is a good strategy. That's what he should do. But it doesn't do enough. It doesn't close the distance. I cause a flood. I do damage. I kill off the ship. And we prevent C from being captured. Friendly Missouri is definitely going to lose to the JB on the enemy team. He's way too low, plus the Zhao's there. But while this is all going on, friendly Alsace took it upon himself to capture A point. And that's exciting. Now, I have a decision. Can I go after Jean Bar, who's pretty low, and risking B point, or should I finish off the Zhao? So in the moment, I went with the Zhao. He looks like he's flattening out, and it looks like it could end up being a perfect broadside torpedo, which would then knock him out. And of course, I'm looking for the defensive fire effect, not seeing it, so I'm going to continue the attack run. We get not 1, but 2 torpedoes, and we knock him out. That was a big gain. Now I can use the same squadron to contribute to disrupting B point. Huge, huge, huge plus. And the only reason I chose that, I just felt like the Zhao was vulnerable. He was playing a little too casually. But we aim to the JB. It aims to a very accurate point, and it looks like I'm going to do very well on it. Scramble once again the torpedo. Torpedoes are the bread and butter of pretty much every single aircraft carrier, especially an isolated target like this that has, yes, he has good AA, but I have better counter AA. I just know how to avoid the flak without ever really running into it. However, before we have a chance to finish the target off, the Alsace plants a big citadel in him, knocks out the JB. A, B, C are ours. All that's left on the enemy team is the Midway, and there's 45 seconds left in the game. So, Overall, British aircraft carriers, very noob-friendly. They're slow, they have extra armor, both on their aircraft but also on their aircraft carrier. The cluster bomb effect, very cool, but not really useful for anything other than battleships and aircraft carriers. Now, aircraft carriers, it's a beast. It's a monster. It covers the entire deck, basically in fire. But against cruisers and destroyers, limited to no use for the cluster bomb. Attack rockets and the torpedo are really where you're going to get most of your damage, and they do very well. They do very well for themselves. We're going to bounce off the edge once again. And I'm going to try and attempt to drop before the fighter knocks me out. Not enough in time. Audacious as a aircraft carrier feels very rewarding. I like the playstyle. I like how different it feels. And it definitely is different. And whoa, we got a moment to carry. And I think the reason I was able to carry so effectively, the enemy was not grouped up, and I definitely outlasted them. So, 163,000 damage done, 4 kills. We don't earn achievements, so we might have earned achievements in this game. 2,351 base XP, 8 aircraft shot down. Honestly, very little aircraft shot down, and the aircraft carriers could have a large impact over the game. I lost a total of 27 aircraft, which isn't bad over the course of the game. Hope you enjoyed this. Leave in the comments what you think of Audacious. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.